All right, joining me now is Stu Barnes. Stu is a former NHL player, played 16 seasons in the NHL for the Winnipeg Jets, Florida Panthers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Buffalo Sabres, and Dallas Stars. He also served as an assistant coach, where I was lucky enough to coach with him with Dallas, and has now moved on and is a pro scout for the Seattle Kraken, the expansion team. For those in Alberta, you'll probably recognize one of the rinks that you play in Spruce Grove is actually named after Stu Barnes, which is pretty darn cool. So Barnesy, when you look back at your career, what are the thoughts that you have? Because I mean, that's a heck of a run you've had.
Yeah, you know what? Thanks, Vals. It was a lot of fun. It was I always enjoyed playing the game growing up as a kid, back in Spruce Grove. I did grow up there and all over Alberta. Played a lot of games in a lot of small towns all over Alberta. Yeah, and I always just enjoyed the game a lot as a young guy, and then certainly when I got to the NHL, I just felt like I was lucky to be there every day, and couldn't believe they kept leaving the door unlocked that I could get in, and my jersey was hanging there for some reason, and was lucky enough to be able to put it on. So yeah, I've always enjoyed being around the game, being a part of it in any way, shape, or form. Lots of good people involved, and a fun sport to be around.
So when you broke into the NHL, I mean, for those that don't know Stu is one of the hardest working, but also one of the best people around. You always made everybody around you better, not only as a player, but also as a coach. When you stepped into the league as a young rookie, who were some of the players that you remember when you look back that made a huge impact in what you became?
Well, I think for me, Vals, I think the guys that really for me kind of cemented what it was to be a good pro at the NHL level were guys like Brian Scrudlin, Mike Huff, Tom Fitzgerald, guys like that were all a part of the Florida Panther team in '93. I started in Winnipeg for a few years and was pretty young and still trying to figure the game out. And then was traded to Florida with a group of guys that were really all about the team and making sure that we did everything we could to be as successful as we could as a group. And Roger Nielsen was actually the coach of that team, who was another great influence on me. So those are the guys that really, for me, clarified, kind of what it took to be a good pro, what it took to be a really good teammate. And, I'll be forever grateful to those guys for sure.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up that Panthers team. So that Florida Panthers team, it was in 1996 that you guys went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
It was, yeah.
Certainly, weren't one of the teams that somebody would have guessed would have been there. What made that team so good?
Well, I think, everybody but us wasn't sure we could get there, but we were pretty sure we could do it. We, like I said, it was a group expansion team that started in '93, led by a great man in Roger Nielsen, and with a great bunch of people on the team, and everybody around the group, from the players to the coaches to the training staff to the management. Everybody was really focused on doing it well as a group, and I think for us that was the key. Like, we felt once we got started that we were as good as anybody and we could beat anybody that we needed to. And you'll appreciate this. We had great goaltending, of course, John Van Beesbroek and Mark Fitzpatrick. So when we went to the finals, I don't think anybody, at least in our group, was surprised. I think we knew that we were a good hockey team, and all we needed was a chance. And it was a great run. It was certainly a lot of fun.
What are some of the things that happened within that group that you look back and say, you know what, like these were some of the characteristics that I want to make sure that you brought to teams going forward, either as a player, as a coach, or now as an owner with Tri City? Is there anything that just like stood out that said, you know what, this is how you do it. This is the right way.
Yeah, I think respect. I think everybody, in the room, and as I mentioned, in the organization, had the respect of each other. That you may not be a first line player, or a goal scorer, but you had a role on the team that was valuable. I know the equipment guys were tremendous people. guys recognize how hard they work and how much dedication they put into it. And you can't forget that, because that's an important piece of the puzzle. Everybody from the office staff to everybody, I think everybody really understood that everyone was working for the same goal. And when you can do that, and you can understand that everybody's doing their best, then I think you have something special. And you don't want to let each other down. That's half the battle. Is you look around the room, and as I mentioned, even outside that room in the organization, you just didn't want to let anybody down, and that was really a special group.
We talked to Andy Mogan, and Moger was talking about, those years in Edmonton and how they just loved being around each other. The guys were
Yeah.
just always together, whether it was at the rink or, after grabbing lunch. They loved being at the rink together, and they just loved playing.
Yeah, that was part of it, and as you're saying that too, I remember a couple other guys I didn't mention earlier. Scott Mellanby and Dave Lowry were two more guys that were just tremendous human beings, good people, great teammates, and really, had a huge influence on me. And I'm, again, grateful to have those guys as friends still today. So, but you're right. I think everybody enjoyed being around everybody. We were, for us, we were an expansion team. So there was no kind of established group already when we all got there. We were all new to it. We all were sticking together as a group. We had a great time post game. We would, a lot of guys, most of the team, certainly more than 10 or 12 guys every night, and girlfriends and wives and family would always get together for, a sandwich or a burger after the game, and sit outside in that great Florida weather. Of course, that didn't hurt. But you're right. We always found ways to get together, whether it was a barbecue or, like I said, post game, just visiting. And, I think that's a big part of it. I think, and again, I think that goes back to respecting your teammates and respecting your coaches and training staff and everybody around you that's putting in their time to make it as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at, the difference between winning and losing at any level is really small, right? And it comes
Mhm.
down to, what players and coaches bring to the rink every single day. And a lot of that is in your control, which is your attitude. And,
Definitely.
the kind of environment that you create, the culture that you create around you. And, I think if you look at any winning organization that you've been on, you probably saw that was the case.
100%. I think that's something that you really can control each and every day. The external influences are things that you can't control. You might, if you're a player, you might have got a shot in the back of the leg and you have a bruise and a sore leg. Well, there's not much you can do about it other than make the best of it. Or, maybe the bus was delayed, or the game was, pushed back, or the ice is bad. Those are things that you can't really control. But what you can control is your attitude, and try to be positive as much as possible. Try to help your teammates when you can. Sometimes when things get tough, the most important thing is to help first, and rather than just kind of go solo and go on your own. So if you can help your teammates through tough situations, that's always important as well. So certainly the culture around the room, and your ability to be a good teammate is a big part of any organization's success, for sure.
Yeah. Looking back, what do you think were some of the major lessons that you learned along the way? Is there anything that you always evolve as a player.
Hmm.
Um, we always say, "Hey, I wish I knew then what I know now." What are
Yeah.
some of those things that you believe you picked up on the way?
I think for me, it was, a couple things. I grew up in Spruce Grove, which was back then was single A hockey. There was no double A hockey at all. Double A used to be the highest when I was growing up. I tried out for a double A team my first year of midget. They made an age group change. So would have been another year of Bantam. Got cut from that team, went back to my hometown and played for a midget team. But it wasn't the top team that I wanted, but it ended up kind of on the second team that I wanted. But in the end, it worked out great. I had a great time. I had great friends from that team. I improved as a player. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun, which was key. And I may not have had that if I would have played up a level that I wasn't quite ready for, because it would have been more of a struggle. So I was ready at the end of that season to move on to the next level. And I think that was important for me, was pay your dues, work hard, and then when you're ready, you'll be ready to go. So And then I got to play a year for the Canadian national team when they used to have a year-round program. And Dave King was the head coach then, and he was another guy that was a huge influence on me. And he really taught me how to work day in and day out. And regardless of situation, there was a lot of European travel that year, so there's a lot of delays, long hours on airplanes and things like that. But he really taught me how, regardless of the situation, you can always work and control your attitude. And I'm thankful to have him for a coach for that year, because he really taught me a lot about the game and how to be a good, how to have that work ethic regardless of the situation.
Yeah. I've quoted you to a lot of, athletes and players that I've worked with, because you told me once that the game always puts you back in your place.
Yep.
Explain that. Explain that.
Well, I think it goes to what I said about being ready. I think, at the best of times, it's not easy, so even, we all watch Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby's and these great players, back in our day, it was Gretzky and Lemieux and those guys. And they have so much success, and they're so good at what they do, but you got to be careful not to understand that it's not hard for them as well. So it's hard for those guys to score as many goals and to look as great as they do. And they have to push themselves at the level. So for me, I think at any level, no matter, being a young guy or higher up, and certainly at the highest levels, I think you have to give it everything you can give, because at some point the game it levels out. You may have, you can imagine if you were a young guy getting called up straight from say junior hockey right to the NHL, and you get put on McDavid's line, and wow, I scored a goal that first game because McDavid threw one over to me and I tapped it in. That's great, but then you have to play the second game and the third game and the fourth game, and eventually the game will put you back at the level that you're kind of should be at for the time being.
Mhm.
Not to say that can't change with hard work and determination, and maybe you can grow and continue to be a good player, but I think it always puts you where you need to be. And I think that's a good thing. I think, you continue to work at it and have the attitude that I want to continue to get better and keep improving. So,
Okay, so you also kind of alluded to this when you were playing single A hockey, uh, about not rushing the process. I think so many times as young players, we're in a hurry to get somewhere, but we don't really know where we're going yet.
yeah.
And we put these kind of external expectations on ourselves. And I think there's a lot of players that you can see that have made it, to the highest level of the game, that weren't superstars when they were 15, 16, 17 years old. So, it's very difficult sometimes when you're younger to not want to be somewhere where you're currently not, right? You're always hoping to
Yeah.
play at the higher level. But I think
Yes.
what you explained, and maybe there's some examples that you have of players that were just late bloomers that just,
Hmm.
just didn't panic, stayed the course, focus on being an everydayer, showing up, working hard every day, and eventually good things happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think every player develops at a different pace, and everybody has their own path. We've heard that expression more and more lately, as I think more and more people are starting to see now, whether it be coaches or players or anything. They're starting to see that, what, it doesn't always mean just check each box. Okay, I played here, check. I played here, check. I did this in the offseason, check, and away you go. I think the to it goes back again to we said about the game will kind of put you in your spot, because in the end you're able to handle what you're ready for, and you're always going to have challenges. And then the trick to continue to improve is meeting that challenge, continuing to improve, continuing moving forward. And that may be a slow process, it may be a fast process for some guys, it may be slower for others, and that's okay. And that's okay for me. If you're enjoying the game along the way, and each of those challenges that comes at you, you think, you approach it with a positive attitude, and you think, okay, I can handle this. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to go ahead and work through it. Then I think you can get through almost anything. I think you continue to improve and continue to grow, and be patient, have success where you're at, and when the time comes, it'll be the next step will be taken.
Yeah. I think it's easy when you look at players such as yourself that had a long successful career. You think it was all it was an easy
Mhm.
path, and it's the furthest thing from it. There's obviously a ton of adversity along the way. How did you learn to handle and deal with adversity?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dealing with adversity, I think, certainly one of the challenges for any hockey player. I think, for me, I started my first year pro in the NHL as just a young guy, 20 years old, not really ready for it, but the plan from the team was to have me start in the NHL, and spent the first half of that first year pro, um, in the NHL. Had some success, but ended up getting sent down to the minors for essentially parts of 2 seasons or a calendar year. And, really learned a lot. Learned about, being a good pro day to day, and fell back on some of those lessons I learned, as I mentioned earlier, from the Canadian team with Dave King, of just, being patient. As we mentioned, everybody's got a different path and a different road to get where they want to be. And embraced that and worked through it, and was lucky enough to get back to the NHL a year later, essentially, and stayed there from that point on.
You later became a captain with the Buffalo Sabres. Being a captain in the NHL is, a lot of people think it only goes to the best player sometimes, and
Mhm.
that's not the case. And a lot of times, people don't recognize the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to kind of be the glue within the dressing room. When you look at you as a captain, what are the things that you were trying to instill in in the culture of your organization?
Well, I think, again, more of that, those lessons I learned in Florida, as
Yeah,
far as, everybody realizing that everybody had a part to play, had a
yeah,
responsibility, had their roles were valued, that as a group we could get further than we could as individuals. And, I was lucky to be a captain for 2 years. I would have loved to had more time to continue to grow in that role. I think, as that in that role, I think you want to continue to get better. You don't have all the answers. Even when you get named a captain, you want to continue to get better and grow. I think, really, that for me, that's what it was all about, is just trying to bring everybody along, and not just one or two people.
yeah. The you know, as you kind of evolved in the game and the game evolved, there was other things that kind of came into play when we were younger. The off ice habits of players aren't what they are today, as far as
Hmm.
and the resources that are available.
For sure.
There's so many things that are available now to players to
Hmm.
make sure that they can be as good as they can be, and part of that comes down to nutrition.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you were really good at early on, and then certainly, certainly as a coach, you were always good at it as well. But how important is that to players nowadays, and what difference does it really make?
I think it makes a big difference. I think you mentioned, Val's, that wouldn't be the difference between success and or winning and losing is so small. So I think, a lot of players at all age groups now are blessed with so much more information than certainly you and I were ever lucky to have around us as we came through. So, I think it's important. I think, the question of what is your goal? I think, if you want to be a good player or achieve higher levels, then, are you willing to, maybe, you know, have something that's a little more healthy than a different choice that you might make. So for me along the way, it's a lot of choices. What is your goal? Do you have a clear goal? How far do you want to go? And that goal comes with choices. It comes, through nutrition, training, habits on and off the ice, things that are going to move you forward, rather than backwards. So, and either decision is fine, but every decision has an outcome, and if you make that decision clear headed, then hopefully you get the outcome that you're hoping for.
And like you always say, you can't cheat the game. And one of the things that you find too is that schedules, whether it's in the NHL or junior hockey, I mean, nowadays we're expected to be the best player you can be every single day. You have to bring the energy to every practice and to every game. So if you're not taking care of your body, whether that's with nutrition or sleep or whatever it is, I mean, it always catches up to you. And it goes back
Hmm.
to what you keep saying: the game will put you back in your place.
Yeah, I think that, that there's the old saying that, about practice. If you're not practicing, somewhere out there, somebody is. So,
Yeah.
And that applies to practice and to really anything that you're mentioning, decisions like, again, and either way is fine. To me, there's no right or wrong. If you'd rather, not do something, that's okay. But then also understand that, hey, I may be a little bit less effective tomorrow in a game or whatever else. But, those are certainly things that pile up once you have a good base of habits over and over and over again. Certainly, as at the pro level, the guys at the NHL level are very, very programmed, and they're very prepared. So they're planning days ahead of as their game might be Wednesday night, but they're already thinking on Monday, what they're having for dinner that night and what time they're getting up Tuesday and what time they'll get to the rink and what they'll be doing once they're at the rink. And so these guys are, they are the perfect model of what it takes for preparation. And certainly that's not realistic for younger players. But as a pro, that's what these guys are capable of.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I like a lot of those things. If you're in the NHL, we're lucky. You probably have a team chef that's preparing half of your meals for you. But
Right. Certainly.
at the younger level, it's more challenging. But just because it's more challenging doesn't mean it can't be done.
Sure.
Is that something that within your organization in Tri-City that you're teaching these young players?
Well, we try to help them as much as you can. Like you said, it's not always easy because of everybody's heading home in the evening and things like that. So, but I think for us, we want to give our guys as positive of a experience as possible.
Yeah.
Hope that they come to our team, and at some point when it's time, when they age out or move on from there, that they had a great time, they had a great experience, that they've grown, and had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more questions. One was you were always you referred a couple times now to understanding your role, and this also came up in a conversation with the Chicago Blackhawks head scout Alex Brooks, and he had a story about
Mhm.
Lou Lamoriello. And Lou would always say that a team is like an orchestra, and if everybody plays their instrument and understands how to play their instrument and can play it together with everybody, you can create beautiful music. But if
Mhm.
somebody doesn't understand how to play the instrument or doesn't play it at the right time, then it obviously doesn't come out the way it's supposed to be. As a young player, we know that certain NHL teams or junior teams are looking for different roles to fill. As a young player, how do you figure your role out?
It's a great question. I don't, it's a really good question, and it's not an easy thing to do. I think like all of us that were, forwards or defensemen, I think we wanted to be scoring goals, and whether it was as a Wayne Gretzky or Bobby Orr or Paul Coffey back in the day, or Al McInnes with a big shot back in the day. And as a goalie, you probably wanted to be, Patrick Roy and these
Mhm.
great goalies over the years. And so everybody has their idol and who they want to emulate. And I think for young players, I think for me, the best way to say it is just try to be the best you can be, and whatever that is. So,
Mhm.
if you're scoring goals, try to score a bunch of goals. If you're a good skater, try to skate fast, and really enjoy the experience, and be open to learning along the way. That, if you're a goal scorer, at some point you're gonna have to know how to play well on your own end as well. So be open to learning that and listening. It isn't going to take away from other things you're doing, but it's only going to make you a more well-rounded player as you continue to grow.
Talk about being a well-rounded player. Aside from yourself, who's the best well-rounded player that you've ever played with?
Ron Francis. You know what? Yeah, I'm fortunate now to work with him with Seattle. But Ron was a guy that I went to Pittsburgh in '96. Was there with him for a little over 2 years, and Pittsburgh had all those great players for so many years, and you can go down the list of Mario's and Jaromir Jagrs and incredible players that were there and had unbelievable success. But there was also this guy named Ron Francis, who was just an incredible player in his own right, and maybe got overshadowed a little bit because of all the flashy talent there. But Ronnie was one of the smartest guys that probably the smartest guy I ever played with. Understood the game at a very, very high level at both ends of the ice, not just as a point producer, but a player that could play late in games, play in his own end, was very good in his own end. really good in the faceoff circle, excellent passer, and just a world-class person. And I think, he was a guy certainly that, years later when I became captain of Buffalo, that I kind of looked back and said, okay, what would Ronnie do in this point? Like, what would Ronnie say and how would he approach this? So for me, I think that was a guy that, to me, that, if there's a perfect hockey player that I ever played with, I think he would probably be at the top of that list.
Interesting. That's a great answer. Last question, Barnesy. You're sitting at a table, and across from the table is young 18-year-old Stu Barnes. You can give him one piece of advice. What do you tell him?
That's good. That's a great question. You saved the best one for last, Valls.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You know what? I think be patient, work hard, enjoy the ride. I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's a great game. As you know, you and I both love the game. It's a lot of fun. It's not always easy, but what a great fun adventure it is. And if you can enjoy it and be patient and continue to work through it, and because for me, if you enjoy the game and you're having fun, you're going to be willing to work. Every player has a coach that's going to tell them to get on the ice at 1:00 and get off the ice at 2:00 because that's when practice is. But if you're a player, an individual that really loves the game, then you know what, maybe you stay on for 5 more minutes, or you shoot pucks in the driveway in the off season, or just whatever. You always enjoy it, and you always like it, and you always want to get better at it than coming to the rink every day, or going to the gym, or going for a jog or whatever that is. Shooting pucks, you love it, you enjoy it, and it's a great game. And if you can play it for a long time, it's fantastic. And if you can't, enjoy it while you can play it in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. Because one day you're old like us and we can't play anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, when I said, it goes by, as we both, played for a while, and it goes by quick, and we got to play for longer than we probably thought we did when we were younger. So enjoy it while it lasts, and have fun. And it's a great experience, a great sport. You meet a lot of great friends and have a lot of great experiences.
Yeah. Well said. Well, thank you so much for jumping on here with me today. Very much appreciated. You are one of the best guys I know in the game, and can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate it, Val's, anytime. And thanks for all the great questions.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.